My wedding was supposed to be the one moment I didn't have to fight for. The one day where every seat was filled with love. Where everyone actually saw me. Not just the version of me they preferred. Not the one edited to be smaller or sweeter, so no one else felt uncomfortable. I stood under the soft lights, hand in hand with the man I prayed I'd be lucky enough to find. Music played. Cameras flashed. People cried. And I was wrapped in white silk in quiet relief that just once, the spotlight was mine. Until she smiled. My mother. She leaned in slowly, still smiling for the photographer, like this wasn't a dagger she was slipping between my ribs. She cupped my shoulders as if to pull me in for a hug and whispered, "We're passing the car his parents gave you. To your brother. He needs it more." I stiffened, the smile on my face held. My body almost didn't understand the betrayal. She pulled away to clap delicately. The elegant mother of the bride, always polished, always concerned with optics. I blinked. The car. My in-laws had surprised us a month ago. A gesture of new beginnings, they said. Nothing boastful or flashy, just practical, generous, kind. A used Lexus in pristine condition, but to me, it was everything. A symbol of finally being recognized. Finally being chosen without conditions. That gift had arrived with a ribbon. My brother never even congratulated me. And now, on the day I married into a family who saw my worth, she had quietly arranged for it to be taken from me. Cheers erupted for the couple's photo. My husband, bless him, pulled me close, misreading the heat in my cheeks as nerves. I smiled for the camera. I smiled like I hadn't just been neatly gutted. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to pull her aside then and there and say, "What the hell are you talking about?" But it would have made me look bitter. Ungrateful. Crazy. That was her talent. Her lifelong expertise in slicing beneath the surface where no one else could see the blood. Instead, I nodded along as people told me I was glowing. I laughed at unfunny toasts. I kissed my husband and danced and smiled like someone who hadn't just been robbed of more than a car, because it wasn't about the damn car. It was about how, even at my wedding, she managed to remind me where I stood, that I was temporary, that no matter how many people stood beside me, she alone could tilt the room with a single sentence. My brother, of course, beamed when we walked past him at the table. He winked as if to say, "You're welcome," as if I should thank him, maybe borrow my own gift on weekends. I swallowed the taste of rage behind champagne and bridal cake. People kept stopping me to compliment how classy my mother looked. "That dress, such grace. You must get it from her." I smiled again, held it flat like a shield. She wasn't cruel the way villains are in movies. No slammed doors or loud insults, just corrections, adjustments, silences that lasted just long enough to change how you saw yourself, praise that landed on others when it was owed to you. "She must be so proud of you," someone whispered. You have no idea, I thought. And yet, something deeper cracked inside me that night, because as much as I hated the moment, as much as it stung with every glance toward her, I felt it. The shift. Something in me knew I would never let that happen again. She thought she'd won. That I'd leave the wedding tired and resigned, once again robbed of celebrating myself without guilt. But all she did, with that one smile, that one sentence, was light the slowest burning fuse I've ever felt. And some part of me smiled back, because I knew, even if I didn't yet realize how, this time, she'd gone too far. Looking back, it wasn't just the wedding. That moment was just the latest in a lifelong pattern. The final brushstroke on a canvas she'd been painting for years. And always with the same brush, subtlety. My mother didn't scream. She didn't curse. That would have been easy to fight. Instead, she finessed her disappointments, tucked her insults into carefully folded napkins, and delivered them with a smile that said, "You're overreacting. When I was 7, I won first place in the district spelling bee. I ran off the stage, clutching my certificate like it was gold." She took one glance at it and said, "Wow, you should thank your teacher. She must have worked hard with you." And then she turned to my brother and asked if he wanted a milkshake. He hadn't even been in the competition. I remember that drive home, my trophy on my lap, Sticky fingers from the milkshake I didn't even want. My brother got to pick the flavor. I got to smile through it. On my 10th birthday, I handed her the earrings I made in art class, a little gift to her from me. She laughed and said, "Oh, honey, don't waste your talent on things I won't wear," and passed them to my brother to give to his teacher for extra credit. He got an A. I got silence. Holidays were always loud. Not from noise, but from what wasn't said. He'd get the biggest gift. I'd get the practical one. When I asked why he got a remote control car and I got socks, she replied, "Yours are useful. He needs to stay active," as if a toy could outrank warmth. And I believed her, for longer than I care to admit. That's the thing with quiet marginalization. It creeps into your skin until you start editing yourself, before she has the chance to. You dim your pride. You hesitate before celebrating. You watch your brother get praised for cleaning the kitchen you already scrubbed, and then offer to do more just to feel noticed. I became the polite one. The dependable one. The one who didn't ask for extras. She loved to say, "We never had to worry about you." And that sounded like love. Didn't it? But now I see it for what it was. A license to ignore me. If I wasn't falling apart, I wasn't important. The worst part? I never told anyone. Not my dad. He worked too much and floated on whatever story she fed him. Not teachers. I didn't want them to think I was weak. And certainly not my brother. He was so caught up in his own golden boy spotlight, he didn't even notice I was standing in the dark. It wasn't dramatic. That's what made it effective. It was manufactured indifference, dismissal disguised as stability. I became addicted to proving I deserved basic decency, mistaking scraps for love simply because that's all I got. By the time I hit my 20s, I thought I'd outgrown it. I thought distance meant safety. But then she'd send a text or call, or comment under a photo with a backhanded compliment that slid right under my skin like it had never left. And I'd shrink again. She crafted a world where celebrating myself felt like arrogance, where asking for fairness felt like stirring the pot, where my brother's laziness was just a phase, but mine would have been ungratefulness. This wedding, her smile, that car, they weren't new instruments of harm. They were just echoes of a song she'd played my whole life. The lyrics had never changed, but this time I wasn't humming along. The worst thing about people like my mother is that they leave you constantly questioning your own reality. You brace yourself, build up the courage to finally say something, anything, and then they hand you a smile dipped in saccharine and say the words that snap your backbone in two. Don't make this a thing. It was exactly what she said when I finally pulled her aside, just outside the reception tent. I waited until the music was loud and my absence wouldn't make anyone wonder. I didn't want to ruin my wedding. I just needed an answer, a sliver of honesty. Or maybe decency, my car? I asked, my voice calm but clipped. The one Brian's parents gifted us. Why would you give it to Josh? She was sipping champagne, shoulders relaxed, manicured fingers tracing the rim of the glass like it was any other day, like I hadn't just watched her detonate a landmine beneath my joy. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, with that pitying voice that turned grown adults into stuttering kids. "Please don't obsess over that right now. He needs it more. You and Brian. You're fine," I blinked. "It wasn't yours to give away." She tilted her head like I'd said something too silly to deserve real consideration. Then she sighed, the slow kind that says you're exhausting me. Don't make this a thing. There it was. Again. That line. I'd heard it after calling her out for leaving me out of family photos. After she forgot my college graduation and sent flowers a week late. Every time I pointed out something unfair, uncomfortable, or just plain painful, don't make this a thing, because the thing wasn't the car. It never had been. It was the pattern. The repeated rewriting of truth dressed up like practicality. It was the way she made me feel like the villain for even questioning her decisions. "I'm not making it a thing," I said quietly. "You already did." She smiled, placid and smug. "Let's just enjoy your beautiful day. You're being emotional." That was the kill shot. The word emotional, coming from her, was an accusation in pearls. Not a quality, not a human reaction, but a flaw. Something that put me below the line of reasonable discussion. The kind of word that made people side with her without even knowing why. I felt my lip tremble. Not from weakness, from the fury of holding it all in. For years. Brian found me 5 minutes later near the guestbook table. I don't know how long I'd been staring at the handwriting of strangers. I just remember his hand gently touching mine. "What happened?" he asked. "Your face looks different." I shook my head, tried to smile. "It's fine, I just needed a breather." He didn't press, thank God. Just wrapped both arms around me and let my head fall against his chest for a moment. He may not have known the full history yet, but he knew enough to feel the shift, to feel me folding into silence. Again. As we returned to the dance floor, cameras resumed clicking. Lights, laughter, champagne toasts. I laughed at one of his groomsmen's stories and even danced. To the same song my mother once told me I didn't have a dancer's grace for, but something was burning, quieter beneath my ribcage. Because I finally understood it wasn't about the car, or the timing, or even the wedding. It was the lifetime of moments that had told me to sit down, be quiet, don't react. Not now, not here, not ever. But this time, I wasn't going to let her decide what became a thing. The last time a moment that was supposed to be mine got hijacked by them, by him, was the day I graduated high school. I'd worked so hard for that day. Straight A's, honors cords, AP classes no one thought I could handle. I stayed up through anxiety attacks and fluorescent-lit study sessions and some weird, misplaced hope that maybe, if I made myself exceptional enough, they'd look at me the way they looked at my brother. Maybe they'd cheer the way they did when he got a promotion for a job he almost forgot to show up to. I remember standing in front of my mirror that morning, twisting my hair into the sleek, no-flyaway bun I saw on the Ivy League girls on Pinterest. Mom had bought me a dress. Just simple enough, she said. "You don't want to look like you're trying hard." Brian had sent flowers in advance despite not meeting me until 2 years later. His were the only ones that came. The ceremony was at 11. Every family was there. Some had handmade posters, balloons, noisemakers. Some moms were literally crying through iPhones trying to film every blurry second. I scanned the crowd twice. Then a third time, my stomach sank. Only one chair in the front row had our last name taped to it. And it was empty. My friends cheered when my name was called. I walked across the stage with my spine straight, and my smile forced so tight my cheeks went numb. The principal shook my hand. The tassel touched my shoulder. The flashbulbs popped, but not for me. Later, I got a text from Mom. "Sorry, sweetie, your brother's investor moved the pitch and he really needed us there for support. We'll celebrate at dinner?" Dinner never happened. 3 days later, they took him out to a steakhouse for his impressive bravery under pressure at that pitch. I wasn't invited. I found out because he posted a blurry group photo captioned, "My ride or dies." I was his sister. But looking at that picture, their smiling faces raised in mid-toast like they'd won something, I felt like some distant cousin they'd forget at Christmas. That day taught me something I didn't want to believe yet. I wasn't the main character in my own family. I was a prop. A background character with some lines, but no scenes. My moments were only valuable if they didn't overlap with his, if they didn't inconvenience them, if they didn't make them choose. And when they had to choose, it was always him. He didn't even remember to ask how it went. He just said, "You looked cute in that robe thing," when he walked past me in the hallway the next day. I kept my diploma tucked between the pages of a book on my nightstand. I didn't frame it, didn't hang it. Why would I? No one asked to see it. I think they assumed they already knew how it ended. Quiet little me doing what I always did. Managing on my own. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, whispering congratulations to myself like it meant something. I promised myself I'd remember the feeling, not the emptiness, and that came naturally. I meant the clarity that said, they don't forget you because they're busy. They forget you because you don't register as real to them. You're just the sister, the one who'll be fine, the one who won't cause a scene, the one dressed in a robe, smiling alone, photographed by strangers. It wasn't until the next morning, after the wedding chaos had calmed and the adrenaline had drained from my body, that I heard what really happened. I was still in my robe, sitting in a hotel suite littered with half-empty champagne glasses and crumpled napkins. My new husband had gone to grab us breakfast. And I sat on the couch scrolling through tagged photos, trying to hold on to pieces that still felt untouched by her. Then my Aunt Nadine called. She always has this way of talking, like she's gossiping but also trying to warn you. I picked up, expecting small talk or awkward congratulations, and she dove right in. "I'm only telling you this because you deserve to know, honey," she said. "Apparently, the car was always meant for Josh." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Your mom told Brian's parents that you didn't want a car, that you'd rather something small for the both of you, something symbolic." That word dripped from her lips like acid. I went quiet. "She said you felt uncomfortable taking something so generous, but that Josh was really struggling and needed something reliable, and since the two of you would probably move abroad one day anyway." She kept going, but the phrases blurred. I'd heard enough. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She'd orchestrated the entire thing. She had looked my in-laws in the eye, taken advantage of their kindness, and rewritten my intentions. She knew I treasured that gesture, how rare it was for someone to give me something significant and expect nothing in return, and she turned it into one more example of how I shouldn't feel too comfortable having anything for myself. "He needs it more." I repeated those words in my head, the same ones she leaned in so sweetly to say, as if she were offering me a kind perspective. "He needs it more." The rallying cry that had excused every time I was sidelined, uninvited, overlooked. What about what I needed? I needed to believe I could finally expect something good, and it would stay mine, that I didn't have to pay for my joy and guilt, trade it in to keep the family machine running. But my mother didn't believe in my independence. To her, I was still the default giver. The passive one, the one who would understand, play nice, and accept it because Josh needed it more. And worst of all, she didn't just want the car for him. She wanted that humiliation for me. She wanted me to smile graciously as something that belonged to me was handed to someone else, again. But in front of a crowd this time, with velvet chairs and floral centerpieces and family friends watching, thinking nothing of it, because no one notices when the quiet one is cut down. They just admire how gracefully she bleeds. But something shifted in that moment, as I stared at the ceiling and my aunt kept talking. I wasn't just disappointed anymore. I was insulted. And if she wanted a show, she was about to find out what happened when the quiet one finally spoke. That morning, after I got off the phone with Aunt Nadine, I just sat there in silence. The kind of silence that wraps around your ribs and squeezes, slow and steady, until your breath feels unwelcome in your own chest. I'd spent my entire life doing everything right. The good daughter, the high achiever, the helper, the peacemaker. I got better grades than Josh. I landed a job straight out of college. I remembered birthdays, said thank you cards, smiled when it hurt, but none of it ever translated to value. It never turned heads the way his half-baked business schemes did. Even when they flopped, my parents still bragged. Josh is such a go-getter. Josh takes risks. He thinks big. When I got promoted at work, I barely got a shrug and a Facebook like. I'd learned how to be quiet about my progress. If I succeeded, I framed it as luck. If I failed, I framed it as my fault. I'd spent so long walking on eggshells. I forgot what solid ground felt like, but this wedding, this car, this moment, it crystallized something I'd always known deep down. I was never allowed to keep anything that was entirely mine. Love? Sure, but only if it was convenient. Attention? Only if it didn't take it from someone else. Joy? Fine, but not too much of it. Not enough to look like I had more than Josh. Even this wedding, beautiful as it was, had been peppered with little comments from my mom. Questions about whether my dress was too bold. Quiet suggestions to seat certain relatives closer to Josh's table. Warnings not to make a big deal about things. And now, the final blow. Taking the one physical, obvious, no-strings-attached gift given directly to me and reassigning it. Because why would I need something outright? I was doing just fine without it, wasn't I? When Brian came back from breakfast, he didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me, his brow furrowing as he set the paper bag on the coffee table. "You're thinking really hard," he said gently, sitting beside me and brushing a thumb under my eye. "Is it the car stuff?" I didn't answer right away. He didn't push. My whole life, I said finally, I thought if I was good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe they'd finally see me. Like, really see me. Not just as a supporting actress in the Josh show, but as someone who deserved space. Deserved gifts, recognition, celebration. And I know it sounds shallow, Brian, but that car, what they did, it was never about the car. He nodded. I know. It's about how even now I'm not allowed to have something nice just for me. Not without guilt, not without being told someone else needs it more. He reached for my hand. Then don't let it slide. That stunned me. What? Don't let it slide this time. I've seen what they do. You've told me the rest. There's a point where grace turns into self-erasure. You've always fought for them, defended them even when they cut you. Maybe it's time you fight for you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized he meant it. Fully, fiercely. He didn't pity me. He believed in me. And maybe for once I could start doing the same. I took a breath, slow and full, because no, I didn't want to make it ugly, but I was done making it easy. Anger used to make me freeze. I'd feel it rising hot through my chest, pressing at my throat, and instead of screaming, I would swallow it whole. Smile. Nod. Lock it behind my ribs with all the other things I never got to say. But this time was different. This time, I didn't cry, I recalculated. See, my family expected one thing from me, passivity. If they pushed, they figured I'd bend. They thought politeness was some permanent personality trait, not something I had learned out of survival. Like I didn't know how to fight, just that I'd been trained not to. So for once, I didn't react. Not with tears, not with accusations, I got quiet. But this time, intentionally. Brian and I flew back home the next afternoon. The moment we landed, I pulled out a folder from the drawer where we kept important paperwork. I started checking the documentation from the car transfer when it was first gifted. Titles, emails, signatures from his parents. I reread the congratulatory letter from his dad, confirming the car was ours. No strings attached. Mine, well, ours. But definitely not Josh's. I added that to a new file, digitally and physically, along with photos and texts. I went back through phone messages where my mom had commented on the car, claiming it was a huge surprise and such a sign of how much they liked me. It was all there. All the proof that I had never once declined it, never suggested it should go to Josh. That her entire story had been built, quietly, on lies. Brian offered to handle it. To talk to her, or have a lawyer draft something simple. But I told him no. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about position. So I made a few calls. Verified the registration. Scheduled a transfer of title documents officially into my name alone, just to be safe. The car was still technically sitting at their house, since it had been delivered there before the wedding. But the paperwork, the power, that was changing hands, quietly, just like she'd always done it to me. I was taking a page from her playbook now, and honestly, it felt controlled, powerful. I didn't need to scream in her face or storm the front lawn. I just needed to tighten the screws, step by step, until everything she tried to unravel was back in its rightful place. I also emailed Brian's parents, lightly. I thanked them again for their generous gift, attached our receipt from the title update, and gently clarified some confusion I heard had come up during the reception. So they'd know. Their response came fast and unmistakably warm. We're so sorry any miscommunications even happened at all. We were clear from day one. The gift was intended for you both, but especially for you, sweetheart. That was all I needed. The last thread, and I saved that email too, because people like my mother never see it coming when you play by their rules, and beat them anyway. End of section 7. Word count 600. The lawyer's email went out at exactly 9:03 a.m. the following Monday. No drama. No colorful message. Just a clean 2-paragraph notification, professionally cold, that the vehicle initially gifted to me and my husband had been formally re-registered in my name. and any attempts to claim otherwise had no legal foundation. The car was no longer on my parents' property. It had been picked up quietly the day before and brought straight to our place, parked neatly in our garage. I took a photo of it, clean and untouched, and smiled for the first time in days. Then my phone started vibrating. First it was my brother. "What the hell is this? You had it moved behind our backs? Are you serious right now?" Then Mom chimed in, not one-on-one, but in the dreaded family group chat. The digital version of a loaded dinner table. "Mom, is this how you want to start your marriage? With paperwork and betrayal?" "Josh," she stole it back. "That's hilarious, Mom. After everything we've done for you." "I am honestly speechless, Dad." Typing. Then nothing. Classic. I sat still as the pings rolled in. It wasn't fury that came first. It was quiet amusement. Because I knew this would happen. I knew the moment I calmly, legally enforced a boundary, they'd treat it like an ambush. Like I'd set fire to the family tree just because I'd finally stopped pruning it for them. "Mom, you could have talked to us. This didn't need to happen like this. Me." It did, actually. Silence. That brief, hollow pause when people realize you're not going to lose your cool. Then came the guilt grenade. "Mom, you're being incredibly petty over a car. It's just a car. Josh really needed it. Do you want him to struggle?" That line made me laugh, really laugh. Alone in our kitchen, still wearing pajamas, holding a cup of tea like it was a glass of victory. Because here she was again. Doing what she'd always done. Turning love into obligation, dignity into defiance. Taking something from me under the guise of generosity. And then acting stunned when I insisted on keeping what was mine. I exhaled, stared at the screen, then typed slowly. "Me. What's petty is making me smile while you steal. What's petty is lying to my in-laws about me. What's petty is acting shocked that I finally said, 'No more.'" The chat lit up again. Rapid, defensive replies I didn't bother reading in real time. I was done defending logic to people who were committed to misunderstanding me. Josh sent a picture of his old beat-up car, captioned, "Guess this is good enough for a failure like me." I didn't reply. I wasn't stepping into another performance of Josh, the martyr. But my mother, well, she wasn't done. She messaged me privately a minute later. "Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you. You used to be so level-headed, and with my hand steady, my breath calm, and zero apology in my spine, I answered, 'Me. I'm the same person I've always been. You just don't recognize me now that I stopped letting you rewrite my stories.' There it was. Not a threat, not a scream, just the truth, delivered the way they'd never seen it come. Not wrapped in tears, not pleading for understanding. Just a woman who had finally seen the game for what it was, and declined to play. After that, the thread went quiet. No more grenades. Just that eerie stillness when the power shifts and no one knows who they are in the new dynamic. And me? I set my phone face down. Took another look at the car sitting outside. Full tank, no scratches. Still ours, and but more than that now, it had become a symbol, not of wealth, not of status, but of ownership. Of finally choosing myself, and I did it without rage, without revenge. I did what they never saw coming. I walked away with what was mine, and didn't ask for permission. A week passed, then 2. The group chat settled into silence, like nothing had happened. Or like everything had, and no one knew how to move through it. I'd expected the quiet to feel cold, maybe even lonely. But instead it felt like air, clean, expanded space I hadn't had in years. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for damage control conversations or emotional cleanup from someone else's poor decisions. I wasn't chasing closure, I was closure. What they never understood, what they probably still don't, is that this was never about the car. It wasn't leather seats or keys or driveway, parking that had me documenting and registering and drawing, lines with ink instead of tears. It was about unhooking myself from the version of me they'd created, the version they preferred because she didn't fight back. This wasn't a material war. This was a psychological one, a lifelong conditioning where my needs were framed as unreasonable. My joy was rationed, and my silence was praised as mature. That car was a symbol of proof, of generosity from someone else, and that made it dangerous to them. Because if people outside the family saw me as valuable, what power would they have left to define me? So they tried to take it, not because they needed it, not even because Josh truly wanted it. They took it to remind me where I stood, and I didn't stand there anymore. I never made a dramatic announcement about going no contact. I didn't post some poetic list of boundaries on social media or stage a final phone call laced with accusations. Nothing like that. But I did stop over-explaining myself in texts. Did stop showing up for every family dinner with a hostess gift and a half-finished apology they didn't ask for. I did let hours, sometimes days, had passed before responding to guilt texts wrapped in faux concern. And they hated it, not because I was cruel, but because I wasn't controllable anymore. I had finally moved the center of gravity from them to me. And even though I was still polite, still composed, still the good one on the surface, they could feel it. The shift. The fact that their opinion no longer outranked my instinct. The fact that my worth no longer relied on their willingness to see it. And when you've been the family peacekeeper, setting even gentle boundaries feels to them like war. But it wasn't war. It was healing. Not the kind they'd clap for. The kind you do in silence, while they complain about how distant you've become, never realizing you're becoming someone they never made room for. Someone who owns things. Who says no. Who doesn't need approval to breathe freely. So no. It wasn't about the car. It was about finally understanding I didn't need their permission to keep what was already mine. We pulled into the driveway 10 minutes late, not on purpose. But I also didn't rush. It was Thanksgiving. And for the first time in my life, I didn't spend the whole morning obsessing over whether my outfit would send the wrong message, or whether bringing pie instead of a casserole would be interpreted as me not taking the holiday seriously enough. I wore what I wanted, brought dessert from a bakery, and I parked our car in plain view, exactly like it belonged, because it did. As Brian turned off the ignition, I could see the curtains shift from inside the house. Someone had peeked. Someone always peeked. "You ready for this?" he asked. I smiled, tight-lipped. Always. We walked in together, hand in hand, pie box in one arm, sleek leather bag in the other. My mom was in the kitchen, apron, matching earrings, a little too much blush. When she looked up and saw us, her face did that thing it used to always do, stretched into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Look who decided to show up," she chirped. I matched her energy. Traffic was murder, but we made it. My dad appeared behind her and mumbled a hello without hugging me. My brother? He barely looked up from the football game on TV, but he did see the car. I know because as we walked past the window, his eyes caught it, lingered, and then his head tilted ever so slightly, like he'd tasted something sour but couldn't quite spit it out. We took our seats at the overly decorated table. The one Mom always went too hard on, like tinsel and orange ribbons could fix generational tension. There was small talk, tension disguised as politeness. Passive-aggressive compliments about my job. "Oh, you're still at that place? That's nice." Brian talked mostly with my cousin about baseball. I chewed slowly, nodded a lot, and watched how every effort to return our dynamic to normal landed flat, like trying to glue together a mirror after it's cracked. Then, in the lull between dinner and dessert, the silence stretched too long. So Josh cleared his throat and said, "Hey, how's the car?" On the surface, innocent. But the pause in his voice told the truth. He wasn't curious. He was bitter. "It's perfect," I said without blinking. "Runs like a dream." Brian reached over to top off my wine like punctuation on my statement. Mom glanced around like she was waiting for someone to step in and lighten the mood. When no one did, she chuckled, trying to pivot. "Well, I suppose it's all water under the bridge now, isn't it?" I locked eyes with her and smiled. Not cruel, just clear. It's exactly where it belongs. There it was again. That almost invisible recoil in her shoulders. The realization that I was still smiling, still polite, but not folding. The daughter she built to stay quiet no longer existed. And they knew it. not through a dramatic speech or slammed fork. Just through the absence of hesitation in my voice, through how I sat tall at the table instead of shrinking myself to make their comfort easier, through how I let the silence sit without scrambling to smooth it over. Thanksgiving was awkward, and beautifully so, because for once I wasn't performing gratitude for a room that forgot how to offer it in return. I was simply showing up, whole, intact, and undeniably mine. It's funny how fast they start paying attention once they realize you've stopped needing them. After Thanksgiving, the air between us didn't clear. It just changed density. They no longer spoke over me, but they didn't quite speak to me either. It was like I'd become something unfamiliar, and they didn't know how to label me anymore. And the truth? I liked it that way, because I wasn't trying to be palatable anymore. The months that followed were lightning behind the clouds. Quiet, powerful steps forward that felt loud in their absence. I got promoted. Not one of those title changes with no raise, but a real jump. New leadership role, bonuses, travel. My boss pulled me aside and told me I had a presence in the room that made people stop and listen. I smiled and thought, no one would believe how long I fought for someone to say exactly that. I put a down payment on my dream apartment. Downtown, corner unit, big windows that let mornings pour in like honey. I didn't invite anyone to the housewarming but friends I trusted. No family, no mother. No chance for commentary or veiled looks of disapproval cloaked in helpful tips. They didn't even get the address. And I bought something for myself, with my own damn money. Not to replace the car my mother tried to steal, but to remind myself I could create without their permission. A pearl white electric SUV, sleek, powerful, silent, just like me now. The moment I posted a photo of it, freshly detailed with the city skyline behind it, the group chat exploded with sarcasm and emojis. But the real fun was watching my brother post one of his quotes to Instagram the next day. Some people care more about things than family, followed by, just saying ta some real loans. No, I didn't even blink. Because that's what they do. Reduce your growth to materialism when they can't assign it to something they understand. But it was never just about the car. And this wasn't about showing off. It was about showing up for myself. A few weeks later, my dad called. Alone. No background chatter, no speakerphone ambush. His voice was softer than usual. Just wanted to say congrats, he muttered. Your mother mentioned your promotion. Sounds like things are going well. I waited. No guilt trip followed. Maybe that was his version of a peace offering. And sure, part of me wanted to ask, why now? Why only when there's undeniable proof, with numbers and photos and job titles and keys I don't need their help to turn? But I already knew the answer. Because they finally had to watch me. Not dismiss me, not redirect the spotlight, not reframe my confidence as arrogance. They had to watch, while I stood unobstructed. No longer the forgotten daughter sitting on the sidelines of someone else's life. And that kind of visibility? It wasn't their gift to give. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped walking across it every time they called. That's something I've had to remind myself more than once. Especially on quiet days. The ones where tradition tugs at my sleeve with nostalgia like a child asking to be fed. The holidays, the family birthdays, the group photos where my smile used to stretch too wide. Trying to make everything look fine from the outside. I didn't destroy my family. I simply stopped performing the version of myself they were most comfortable with. You know the one. Agreeable. Soft-spoken, self-regulating, self-sacrificing. The one who let insults land in silence so the mood wouldn't shift. The one who turned every hurt into a private burden so nobody else had to feel uncomfortable. The reliable one. The forgettable one. The safe one. But growth has a way of making you incompatible with your old roles. And once you stop faking who you are to keep the peace, you start noticing how little peace there actually was. In their eyes. The car was still the beginning. In mine, it was just the line in the sand where I finally said, no more. It's surreal now. To look back at how small I kept myself just to fit in their blueprint. To remember the years I mistook approval for love and tolerance for support. I was fluent in their silences. Their subtle digs, their sideways praise. I translated pain before it even reached them, so they'd never have to sit with discomfort. I realize now how exhausting it is to be a daughter and a buffer at the same time. They tell themselves I've changed, that I got bitter or distant, or maybe even full of myself. But I didn't get full of myself. I just stopped being empty. The distance that now lies between us was never the goal. It was the symptom of healing, of choosing myself, of finally learning that boundaries aren't a punishment. They're the evidence that I love myself, too. And love's not supposed to hurt like that. Not in the backhanded jokes, not in the convenient invisibility, not in gifts turned into tests. That's what the car became in the end, a test, not of ownership or entitlement, but of whether I would give up something meaningful to me, just to avoid making others feel small in comparison, whether I would keep playing the role of the one who always made room, even when there wasn't space left for me. And for once, I didn't. For once, I chose not to shrink. I chose dignity over harmony, truth over performance, and from the outside, I'm sure it looked like distance. But from here it looks like freedom. I still get the occasional text. My mom sends group messages with passive updates. My brother stalks my social media and leaves the occasional LOL on something just ambiguous enough to be interpreted as either sarcasm or peace. My dad called me on my birthday this year. Just him. He didn't say much, but for once it wasn't about anyone else. We talked about my job. He asked if Brian and I were planning to travel this winter. There was a pause where I thought he might say something more, an apology maybe, or acknowledgement, but none came. Still, it didn't feel empty, because I didn't need it anymore. And maybe that's the final twist no one saw coming. That the car, the fight, the shifts, everything that followed, it was never about revenge, it was about returning to myself after years of bending into someone they could love easily. Know now that the real prize wasn't the leather, seats, or the title registration. It was me, uncompromised, unapologetic, undeniably my own.